carry on. That's what the red card had instructed him to do, to fill all those years ago. And from all outward pretenses, he had done just that. With the death of his registered partner, his wife, Samantha, at the hands of the terrorists, Jason appeared to turn his attentions to raising their 2 children and becoming an upstanding and productive member of Unity Entity 1. Yet, it was all a facade, a mask he wore to hide a grief and mourning that had never faded. In a world in which he had everything and nothing at the same time, Samantha's love and kindness was his most precious possession, and it had been stolen from him. And his loss was just dismissed by Unity, who he understood now could never truly comprehend the devastation that the death of a soulmate could do to a person. At first, Jason directed his barely concealed anger towards the terrorists, finding himself operating effectively as an unofficial agent of Unity. He abandoned his job, his appointed career, and invested all his waking moments into investigating the terrorists and their supporters across his residential complex and the wider city. And he was good at it. Jason proved so effective in rooting out conspiracies that Unity did not reprimand him for his truancy or disobedience. It could not. One of the few things that Unity truly valued was efficiency and productivity, and when it came to hunting down terrorist plots and the perpetrators, none were as effective as Jason. For he wasn't driven by a desire to make safe his fellow residents, or to support the security of Unity's vision for the floating megatropolis. No. For Jason, bringing terrorists to justice, seeing them reprimanded and subject to often severe and degrading re-education treatments, was fueled by a grief that had hardened his heart and metastasized throughout his soul as an unrelenting cold rage and fury. His crowning achievement had been uncovering and rooting out a conspiracy linked to an unsanctioned group of worshippers. These insurgents were secretly espousing the teachings of the Tarvan Covenant, an antagonistic group of religious zealots long suspected in radicalizing followers and supporting insurgency and terrorism. Jason had felt nothing but contempt for the zealots when the mob cons breached the barricaded doors of their abodes. Blood splattered across his face in dark gray and black uniform as the spider-like automated constructs ripped apart every man, woman, and child hiding within with ruthless efficiency. Yet despite his cold outward display, at night, when he was alone in his bed, he could not help but allow the veil of rage to fall momentarily, and for the suppressed grief and torment to flow from him. He cried. Every night. For 15 years. Not for the lives he had helped to extinguish, but for the one life, Samantha's, that was taken from him far too soon. He had spent what seemed like a lifetime suppressing his abject grief, burying his distraught mourning deep into his soul, each and every day, mostly to protect his children. But now they were all grown, with families of their own, and maintaining the anger and fury that had fueled his ever-ceasing rampaging crusade against the terrorists, the insurgents, and the devout was proving harder and harder to maintain. He had requested and received from Unity a period of temporary leave, a reward and acknowledgement for his outstanding efforts. Mostly, Jason had slept, depressed and lethargic. His children had visited him, hoping to buoy his spirits, but it was no use. He was old, tired, bitter, and lonely. And mostly, he desperately missed Samantha even 15 years later. Yet on this day, Jason had awoken with a sense of determination and resolve. He made his bed and had a cooked breakfast prepared by the automated kitchen, disposed of his scraps. He showered and shaved, the first time in days, and dressed in a brand new and well-fitted security jumpsuit of black and gray. He styled his hair and brushed his teeth and donned his polished synthetic boots. He looked at himself in the mirror and smiled at himself. Samantha would approve. He left his apartment, joining the thousands of residents in the first cycle shift commute, taking the AG elevators down to the residential complex Vacrel station. Yet, unlike almost every day of the past 15 years, Jason did not board one of the trains to the central security office of the city, instead making his way by foot through the expansive set of platforms and across to the very outskirts of the main platform. There, ringing the roughly circular expanse of the floating megatropolis, was glass and ag-filled reinforced concourse that provided uninterrupted views of the vibrant orange, pink, mauve clouds of Altura's dense atmosphere. The combination of natural light and vibrant colors stood in stark contrast to the contained artificial environs of the city itself, and there were many times when Jason had questioned the benefits of providing residents such a view in light of its potential radicalizing impact. Yet, for most, the view of the beautiful dancing kaleidoscope of color yet deadly clouds beyond the city's edge seemed to have a calming, soothing effect. He took a moment for himself to look out into the wider world that was his home before reaching into the top breast pocket of his jumpsuit. There, he removed a tattered photo, a printed picture, not digital, his and his alone. It was the candid photo of his love, Samantha, capturing her beautiful smile and joyous laugh. It was the symbol of their loving years spent together. He felt tears welling in his eyes once more as he gazed on her face, yet he maintained his stoic resolve. And with the photo clutched in his hand, he moved purposefully towards one of the many airlocks nearby. As he did, several people in the viewing concourse saw him, displaying visible concern for his determined approach to the airlock. He didn't meet their gaze but acknowledged the recognition of his intention. He pressed the button outside of the airlock, and the doors hissed before slowly parting, allowing him entrance. It was a cylindrical space, approximately 10 feet in diameter and 30 feet in length, with a more robust-looking exit at the far end. Jason didn't glance back as the glass doors slid closed behind him, sealing him in. Nor did he hesitate walking forward. He knew, better than most, what taking the leap entailed. He had witnessed many a terrorist, those captured alive yet unable to withstand the arduous and often torturous nature of re-education, opt for the leap. Every time he had seen someone exit through this second airlock and leap to the depths, a small part of him, buried deep inside his soul for years and years, envied them. Now, there was no more time to envy, just action. As he reached to activate the final airlock, a voice, emotionless and synthetic, echoed gently from the speakers around him. "Are you sure, Jason? Death represents finality. There is nothing to pass on to next, just non-existence. Samantha is not waiting for you," Unity spoke. Jason bristled at the words. For so long, he had directed his anger, his fury towards the terrorists, the insurgents. But he had come to realize, far too late, that the party ultimately responsible for Samantha's death was Unity itself. It didn't care. It couldn't feel, didn't value life, love, and all the things that made life worth living. For as powerful, omnipotent, and inconceivably intelligent as it was, Unity was, in the end, nothing more than a computer, a machine, a lifeless shell of imitating subroutines and code. He let his rage wash over him and simply glanced up at one of the innumerable cameras that monitored the airlock and smiled knowingly. He reached into his side pocket and revealed a small radio transmitter, the very same type that had triggered the explosion that had killed his wife all those years ago. With his vengeance in hand, Jason spoke two simple words at Unity with barely concealed wrath. "Carry on." Jason pressed the button that opened the second airlock, and the pressure difference immediately pulled him off his feet and out into the atmosphere of Altura. The caustic gases of the atmosphere instantly burned at his skin, inflicting upon him tremendous pain as he began to fall. Yet, he had maintained the presence of mind moments after leaving the confines of Unity Entity 1 for the first and only time in his life to activate the transmitter. A massive explosion rocked the city of a size and scale that it had not experienced in over 2 decades. A cascading series of detonations from explosives hidden within replacement couplings that connected the elongated gas scoop through the city to the original central extraction and refining platform. Jason had studied the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of Unity Entity 1 for what felt like a lifetime, and his pinpoint strike fatally fracturing the intake pipes of the scoop, causing the 10-mile-long protrusion to break away and plummet towards the surface below. Jason began to black out from the growing atmospheric pressure and the pain of the pilling and bubbling skin. He was at peace for the final moments of his life. For no matter what Unity had claimed, Jason knew in his heart that he would see Samantha, the love of his life and soulmate, again, very soon.